The quintessential introduction monster, the Goblin is delegated to be XP fodder for a group of aspiring adventurers. But what should you consider if you want to play a Goblin hero? In this video, I will be briefly going over the lore and themes of the race, the racial stats, and discuss how goblins are depicted in each of the other official 5th edition settings in order to help you play as a heroic goblin at the table. Hello, welcome to Dungeoneers Pack, a channel bringing you player-focused discussions and character guides for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. My name is Josh, thank you for watching. Before jumping into the topic, I just wanted to provide a disclaimer. Many of the humanoid races have a history of descriptive language and design that is out of touch with modern sensibilities and is connected to harmful real-world rhetoric used to target marginalized groups in our society. I will address these issues to the best of my ability rather than shying away from them. My goal is to inspire players to create characters while also helping create an inclusive gaming space. With that said, let's get started. Goblins are the entry-level henchmen for most campaigns, whether those games are official or homebrew. The race is painted as savages in every sense of the word. Their designated evil alignment is rationalized and attributed to the evil deities that they worship and how their societies are viewed in and out of the game. Mogubliet, the Goblin God of War, and Kugorbayag, the Goblin God of Slavery, do not tie the race to concepts that would be deemed morally acceptable in or outside of the game. Culturally, their people are seen as violent and primitive, taught from a young age that the only way to survive a harsh world is to look out for themselves. This often leads to infighting amongst their own, with goblins willingly murdering other goblins they deem as rivals or finding other ways to have authority over them. The basis for their entire social structure is cemented around the idea that might makes right, the strongest will be in charge. This is why if a goblin is not in charge of the clan, you can find a hobgoblin, bugbear, or even an orc in charge. Goblin communities are sustained by continuous raiding and thievery against nearby towns, enemy lairs, and the occasional dungeon. These reprehensible deeds put them at odds with members of other races. In fact, the only true ally of the goblins is the monstrous wolves, the warg. It is fairly obvious that goblins were designed with the intent to create an evil monster that players can pit their heroes against. This unfortunately was done using words like savage. While savage isn't problematic on its own, given the context it was used in, it shares the same historical context to describe indigenous peoples as primitive and aggressive in order to dehumanize them. This is not the case for all goblins in every official 5th edition setting, as they have largely moved away from this. But for the base lore, this has defined the race in every edition. That leads to the question, if goblins are designed to be evil, what can I do to play a goblin hero? Being a heroic goblin already sets you apart from other goblins. Stepping away from your clan to take an altruistic path has the potential for a great backstory for your character. Consider the events that lead up to your character leaving their clan. Was this change made to ensure your character's survival? Were they spared and abandoned by the clan for being seen as weak? Or were they casted out of their clan for an action deemed unforgivable by goblins that they are now on a path of redemption? There are other themes that you can pull from the lore that can inspire your goblin character. Surviving a harsh world could be one theme to consider. Maybe there is a greater evil that threatens the life of your clan and the world. Your goblin could step up and join a group of adventurers to help stop the rising evil. Another theme to consider is a universal one. Finding acceptance is something we can all relate to and is something we as players can tap into and bring that story to the table. Work with your DM and find out how goblins are viewed in the world at large. Racism and bigotry are heavy and common topics that are present when playing a character that is viewed as the other. Discuss this with your group in DM to understand how or if these topics will be addressed and if everyone is comfortable with these issues being included in your game. Having a strong understanding of goblins' place in the campaign will help you hone in on how you want to portray your character's journey and finding acceptance. Are they trying to find acceptance with their own people? Being altruistic sets them apart from other goblins. Are they looking to be accepted by the clan while still retaining their own values and individuality? Are they looking to have their people accepted by the world? How is your goblin going to achieve this? Are they an emissary attempting to build relationships with neighboring villages? Or are they attempting to do something courageous to win the hearts and change the minds of those that view them as evil? Are they trying to come to terms and accept themselves for who they are? Determining your self-worth and discovering your identity is something we can all relate to. Your goblin could be on their journey to discover who they really are away from their clan and the society that fears them. Mechanically, goblin racial traits are reflective of their small stature. For their iconic ability score, they get 2 to dexterity and 1 to constitution. Dexterity represents their nimbleness while constitution reflects their ability to survive in harsh conditions. With Tasha's Origin variant rule, you can place the ability score bonuses in any ability score you feel better represents your character. Goblins are the small size, which comes with the disadvantage of not being able to use heavy weapons, but unlike other small races, they have a base walking speed of 30 feet. As with most fantasy races, they have better vision than humans, so goblins have dark vision. Fury of the Small will let players add extra damage to an attack or spell on any creature that is larger than them. The extra damage is equal to your character's level. This reflects pent-up rage being unleashed. That rage could be a result of the harsh environment or conditions they have spent their life surviving. Nimble Escape takes a bit of the cunning action feature from the rogue, letting players use the disengage or hide actions as bonus actions on their turn. This feature plays into the small size and nimbleness that is attributed to the race. Taking into account the lore and mechanics, goblins are a solid choice for dexterity-based martial character builds. While there may be some redundancy between the Nimble Escape and cunning action, the class fantasy of the rogue fits with the goblin. Fighters get some additional benefit out of Nimble Escape, giving a reusable bonus action that they don't always receive. Whether it's a ranged or melee fighter, the class can reflect the goblin who is part of a raiding party or was one of the clan's defenders. The Ranger class also fits within the lore as the class plays into the survivalist and scout themes of the race. Additionally, taking the Beastmaster subclass will allow you to play into the relationship between the goblin and warg. Monks are mechanically viable for the race as Nimble Escape alleviates a stress on key usage. The class is also a great way to distance your character from the negative aspects of the lore, while still leaning into the agile angle the traits portray. Your goblin could have found faith or a new way of life, and are on a path of enlightenment learning to master their mind and body. When considering the origin variant rule, Nimble Escape and Fury of the Small are great for any spellcaster adding an escape option and being able to sprinkle a little extra damage on top of your spell attacks. Playing a cleric is another way to distance a character from the negative aspects of the lore, or adding some complexity to the lore by expanding the goblin pantheon to include neutral or positive gods. The Artificer is a solid option to consider to lean into the crafty goblin archetype. Their power comes from their intelligence instead of their physical form. The base lore encompasses settings like Forgotten Realms or other traditional fantasy settings, but many of the other official 5e settings take a different approach to goblins. Not all official 5th edition settings feature goblins. Unfortunately, Ravenloft and Theros do not include the race. My suggestion is to take racial traits and reskin them to fit any small race you may want to include in the setting. The goblin racial traits are perfect for representing any small size humanoid. With that said, Eberron takes inspiration from the base lore and takes a modern approach adding complexity that isn't found with standard goblins. In fact, there are 3 bits of lore that a player could use as a basis for their goblin hero. Like with most races in Eberron, your goblin could have assimilated into any of the nations in Corvair, taking on the traits and the causes of the citizens of that nation. In the description below, I have links to articles from Eberron's creator Keith Baker that will go into more detail regarding each nation. Goblins are not without a home to call their own. Goblinoids and other monstrous races have been rallied together by the Daughters of Sorakel, a coven of hags, and have established the nation of Droam. Many of the themes of traditional goblins can be found in Droam, giving players the opportunity to explore them, but goblins are not inherently evil. Droam is a young nation and is looking for legitimacy in a post-war world. The nation not only has mercenaries ready to deploy for any willing nation that may need some soldiers, they also have an abundance of dragon shards, which gives the nation some economic power. As a goblin, you could be part of a mercenary band hired to help out with the neighboring nation's causes. You could also be an ambassador sent by the Daughters of Sorakel attempting to establish trade relations. Or you could be a goblin that has been employed to mine dragon shards, but are looking to leave that life behind and search for some adventure. Goblinoids and by extension goblins play a larger role in the history of Eberron. The Decani Empire was a goblinoid dynasty that ruled over Corvair before humans and other races migrated to the continent. The once great empire was responsible for artifice that is now common practice in the setting. The Decani Empire fell due to their ongoing war with the Dalkir, an invading force of eldritch horrors threatening to conquer and corrupt the world. While the Decani were successful in defeating the threat, it came at a great cost. Their numbers had been depleted, many of their own had become corrupted, and the emergence and rise of other humanoid races caused the remaining Decani to retreat underground, waiting for a chance to return to the world. Decani culture has a strong moral martial tradition that is not based on useless slaughter. They believe they must sacrifice a bit of their individuality and play their role to ensure survival and strengthen their society. Each goblinoid is expected to fill a role. Goblins are often delegated to be scouts, expecting to warn their group for or spy on potential threats. They can also be a skilled artificer, enhancing the armors and weapons of their champions. Female goblins can become bards, retelling the tales of their lost empire and their new champions. Bards play a vital role in Decani society, establishing a connection to magic and a tradition of oral history. Ravnica diversifies goblins based on their guild affiliation and adds complexity to the race that isn't seen in most settings. The Boros Legion is a military guild that shares law enforcement duties with other guilds in Ravnica. As a goblin joining the ranks of the Legion, you look to serve and protect the city from those that threaten it. Being a Boros goblin, your character still retains some of the war aspects of the race, but with an altruistic twist. Upholding their ideals, passionate in their cause, and quick to act, these traits are in stark contrast to the cruel nature that traditional goblins are depicted with. Some of that cruel nature may be found if you are playing a goblin from the cult of Rakdos, but that is not the only trait you will find in the guild. Despite worshipping a demon, the cult of Rakdos values personal pleasure and freedom above anything else. This has many guild members involved with the entertainment and culinary industries in the city. A Rakdos goblin could be cruel, artistic, or even play up some of the comical aspects of the race. The Gruul clans embody the might makes right philosophy, which lines up with another aspect of traditional goblins. This rule by power will never find a goblin amongst the leaders of the Gruul clans, but that doesn't mean goblins can't play an important role in the clan. The Gruul value the land they live on, and a history and tradition from a time before the guilds. They act as a counterbalance to the ever-growing city and other guilds' powers. Seen as outsiders, the Gruul clans will cause chaos to ensure that the natural land of the plane is protected. Goblins in the Izzet League are vastly different from their traditional counterparts. They are intelligent and inventive. Izzet members aim to push the bounds of magical science with great inventions to improve the lives of the citizens of Ravnica. An Izzet Goblin will value bold ideas, have a thirst for knowledge, and a drive for discovery. Strixhaven does have goblins, but they are played up for comedic relief and are not deemed capable of pursuing magical studies. If you are dead set on playing a goblin attending Strixhaven, your character could be from any of the other planes or 5th edition settings with your DM's permission, as Strixhaven is the premier magic college in the multiverse. Goblins can be more than just the run-of-the-mill minion that is expected to be XP fodder for a group of adventurers. Despite being designed as blatantly evil, goblins are a great roleplay option with decent mechanics to play as a hero. The race is a prime candidate to explore the theme of acceptance, which is something we can all relate to. Goblins in other settings distance themselves or utilize aspects from the base lore to add nuance, complexity, and depth. These new ideas and interpretations of the race are welcome additions to the game that help fuel player and DM creativity and push the game in a new and exciting direction. With that said, I want to hear from you. What kind of goblin hero would you play? Let me know down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, I drop a video every week, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you are looking for some feats to add to your spellcaster or martial character builds, but are not sure what to take, check out my feats playlist. You can check out the playlist by clicking the thumbnail on the screen or in the link in the description below. Alright, I'm out of here. Have a good one.